Hey, what's up, folks? Just recording this video on a book and or in particular podcast that I listened to by James Neathery, Neathery, who is a big proponent of the infinite banking concept. And one of his featured guests has been Wayne Jett, Jett, and he has a book called The Fruits of Graft, Graft. And it's a 4-part podcast. I mean, there's 4 separate parts to it on YouTube, and just listen. I've done a lot of study around things that are called conspiracy theory, or as I have it, what do they call it? Revisionist history. It's like the truth of what really happened, as opposed to the official story that they give you. And this is a book that I definitely have to get and read and add to my library, because he goes into the whole history of how the Federal Reserve was created, how they print money out of thin air, and how shortly after the creation of the Federal Reserve Bank in 1913 with the Federal Reserve Act, the United States went into World War One, and how the wars of World War One and the war of World War Two and Civil War, whatever, were all really just efforts to reduce the population. And just hearing him talk about Franklin Delano Roosevelt's presidency and all of the wicked things that this guy did, the gold that he had people turn in during the Great Depression so that they could just, like the Rothschilds and those type of folks, could just capitalize off of it and make ridiculously insane profits off of it. And how essentially you had all of these men going into World War One fighting for what they thought was for their country, when it had nothing to do with that. It was all money. It was all the banksters and their endless quest to control people, reduce the population, et cetera, et cetera. And then he talked about how in the book or in the interview, how they took away people's land. There was some type of government action that was taken. And then that land that used to be owned by farmers throughout much of the U.S. was then given over to the Monsantos of the world. And what did they do? They started to poison the food crop, even over in Vietnam, when they sprayed Agent Orange. That was something that was, if memory serves me right, was mentioned as being linked to the DuPont Corporation, which is also a very wealthy family. And really just thinking about what he was sharing as I'm listening to the video about all of these young men that were killed in their prime, 20, 21, 22, in Normandy Beach or whatever. Not just American soldiers, but German soldiers as well. And most of them had no idea why they were really there. And just to see the levels and the depths that the social engineers, as I call them, will go to control people and actually just destroy lives, destroy families, destroy entire economies. In this day and age, with the touch of a keyboard on a mouse pad or on a keyboard. It's mind-boggling. So if nothing else, again, like I say quite often in the various things that I post, don't take my word for it. Go check out James Neathery. Go check out the podcast. Check out Infinite Banking. The guy that created the infinite banking concept was really hardcore. Nelson Nash. I'm not a Christian, but I respect him, because that guy was one of those folks that really was not just talking about it, but he was about it. And even he talks about the Federal Reserve Bank and just how fraudulent that it is. And so between that and what James Neathery talks about on his podcast with his partner Ryan, I had a chance to go to Fort Worth, Texas a while back earlier this year in February. And I actually wanted to go to his office and just talk to him and ask him some questions about life insurance And it just so happened that that was a Saturday, and I'm sure they were not working. And it was like 4 or 5 in the evening at that time in Texas, so I know I had already missed them for the day. But I would have loved to have had the opportunity to go talk to those guys, because the things that they share about what it means to sell life insurance and really empower people around what it is to know what type of policy you have, and those distinctions that they provide in their podcast, talking about the difference between Keynesian economics and Austrian economics, the difference between, the media hype versus the truth of what really happens when you're talking about economic policy, and the things that never get mentioned. I mean, those guys are the truth. And just hearing Wayne Jett share, and he's very long-winded. When I listened to the first interview, I was kind of like, wow, dude, can I really listen to this whole thing? And because I'm kind of a geek in a sense that I love economics and I love history, I was able to get into a good little rhythm with it, maybe 15 to 20 minutes in, when he started talking about the history of America, and what has caused the economy to collapse and what has caused the economy to rise. And in this book, he goes into great detail. And his life story is pretty fascinating too, because he was greatly affected by the Depression. I think he said his mom died fairly early, and people during those times lived a hard life, because that's one of the other things he talked about, is how Franklin Delano Roosevelt and his administration literally destroyed crops of food on purpose. And then you had masses of people starving in America. And supposedly, based on what he said, there were over, I think, like close to 6 million people that died of starvation in America during World War II, or somewhere around that time. And so I'm just, getting into a space where I can make that structure readily a part of my routine, where I'm reading on a daily basis the books that I really enjoy. I got another book from James Neathery's podcast from this guy. The name of the book is called "Why Are You Still a Slave" by Peter Johnson, and he was one of the guests on James's show, just going into how societies rise, how societies fall, why people don't have fulfilling relationships, why they don't really get really present to their commitment, the true commitment a lot of times, when people go into a career or to a job, and that time commitment, which doesn't allow for time with your spouse, which does not allow time to get to know your children. And you're so concerned about, putting food on the table so you can take care of your family, and not have your wife leave you, or your children look at you as some, deadbeat dad or whatever. This society is not set up to promote family. And to really, I've always, kind of observed that for quite some time. I'm like, the people that manage to keep their families intact, people that manage to have vision, the father, let's say in this case, of a particular family, and he was in a good career, and he made sound investments, and he did his homework, and he did his research, and he had an amazing wife, that just had his back and said, we're going to win no matter what. We're going to win, and we're going to create generational wealth. That's absolutely priceless. Absolutely priceless. Because, I was just talking to some relatives today, a couple of my aunts. I grew up in Michigan, and didn't really have a lot of fond memories growing up in Michigan. Different challenges in the family at times. But ultimately, I've always loved my family, and I've always had a great deal of respect for people who somehow found a way to keep their families together. And they go on family trips together, because in the truest sense, we're all we got, really. And again, just to finish that thought about James Neathery in the podcast, what's really there is just how most people never really got to know their father, because their father went over to Germany or was in World War I and died well before his time, over a war that had nothing to do with keeping America free. It had everything to do with lining bankers' pockets, period. At the expense of family, at the expense of people's health and sanity and well-being. They don't care about none of that. So if nothing else, whoever may watch this video at some point in time in the future, have vision. I remember working at a health food store, and a guy came in there, and I know the Bible, kind of okay, but I'm not nearly as well versed as a lot of people are. And he mentioned the scripture in the Bible, and I've heard it, that it can be taken a number of ways, but the scripture is, a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. And seeing the stories of some of these guys like James Neathery, who created not James Neathery, but Nelson Nash, who created the infinite banking concept, and get the book Becoming Your Own Banker by Nelson Nash. I started like halfway through it, but it's it's profound. The title really says it all. Becoming your own banker. You don't have to go to a Bank of America or SunTrust. Excuse me. You don't have to go to any of those places for a loan, because you're your own bank. And then when you set up your corporation the right way and put everything in the company name, which the way that they say the wealthy do it, then that gives you that much more of a chance of being able to have longevity. And that's just one of those formulas for success I've been studying over the years, just wondering when and how I'd get a chance to implement that, for myself and my family, and share that message with other people so they can be empowered to create wealth with their families. So, choose your tribe wisely, and really work to be there for each other and have each other's back. It's not always going to be pleasant. You ain't always going to like each other. It ain't about that. It's about the bigger picture. What are you committed to as a family, as a tribe, as a team, as business partners? What's your vision? Hold true to your commitment, and let that be what drives you. Let the complaint be cast aside. Let the commitment be the driver, the driving force that wakes you up in the morning and has you continuing to take action even when you don't feel like it. Because relationships are business. And I'm talking about men and women when you get married. That's a business contract, whether that's stated or implied. It's all business. So learn business and apply yourself. Learn about law. I'm learning more about law as I'm getting more into these conversations around economics and finance, because that's what gives you the best chance of really being able to set up your corporation right, and being able to, you can choose to pass it down to your children or your children's children, or, give it to a trust, or of course you want to have a trust for yourself and your family. Again, those are all the conversations that make a difference to where you can have peace in your life, because you're not concerned about money. So, yeah, put the Most High first and always. And at the same time, just do the work and get free, because it is still possible. As that one scripture says, according to your beliefs, so be it unto you. So it's really just about what we choose to believe in terms of what we know to be possible, and continuing to take actions that are consistent with that reality that we're committed to creating for ourselves and our families. You can do it. We can all do it. Be encouraged. Be well. Be wise. Be strong. And get your life like never before. And now's the perfect time. Take care.